And what did your friends and your family think about the
Well,
whole
they
thing?
were horrified because for my sins, I used to organise a lot of parties, and they all said, "Who's going to organise our parties for us? You're going to miss all your friends."
And what would you say are the worst parts of island life?
Having to go ashore shopping or go to the doctor, I think that is the worst part. I can take anything that the island throws at me, but not leaving it.
And how did you come about opening it up to the public?
Now that was not our intention at all. We were just going to live on the island, but as I say, I got a job in Looe which necessitated my staying on the mainland, and Atty was here alone. Come the summer she found people landing, and she didn't know how to cope with these people. She didn't want to spend all her time on the beach saying, "Get off, this is my island." So she thought up a brilliant idea that she would put up a big notice to say there was a landing fee, and she thought it would frighten everybody away. Instead of which, of course, all the landladies in Looe sent their visitors out to her, and she was stuck. £0.50, I think she was charging in those days. And everybody that stepped foot on the island wanted a cup of tea. She didn't know what to do about that one, so we had this room as a craft room for actually making crafts, and she used to bring people in here, and in fact the first people she didn't know what to do with. She took them into our house and sat them in our lounge, and then made them a cup of tea in our kitchen and took it into them, and she thought, well, she can't do that every day. So that's how she started to organise allowing people to come in here, and she would make it in the house and run down here with trays of tea, and she was exhausted at the end of the day. And then other people wanted lunch, so she was foolish enough to provide lunch for them, and she used to make scones for the tea as well, and all in all it was very exhausting.
And what would you say the features of the lifestyle are that you're most fond of? Most fond of?
Most fond of? Well, I think the gardening, that's the thing that attracts me. In fact, I do that to the detriment of everything else. In other words, I don't do any housework.
And do you ever feel isolated out here?
No, I had a whole year here alone after Atty died, and although I didn't care for Christmas, a lot of people are alone for Christmas, but you feel a bit more cut off than most people, I think. But it was bearable. It was bearable.
And do you ever feel that you want to go over to the mainland?
No, never. I have to occasionally to go to the dentist or the optician or the doctor. But if I can get away with one trip a year, I'd be happy.
And do you think that your pets have played a large part in your happiness over the years?
I would think so, really. Because we were a very united family, so Atty and I got on very well. We had our moments we quarrelled about, but only unimportant things. And they weren't real quarrels anyway. But I think most families do. Adds salt and pepper to life, doesn't it?
And how hostile are the winters here?
Oh, it can be very harsh. We've had hurricanes here, and we had one very bad gale that coincided with the highest tide for 300 years, and it swept away the path to the main beach, swept away the boathouse, swept away 3 boats, and then we had another hurricane, a southeasterly gale, which demolished some of the cliff that fell down and demolished the spring water pump house. So, and this was in December, and we knew we wouldn't get anybody out at that time of the year to come and do in repairs, and it needed bulldozers and things to take the cliff away to get at the spring water. And we have storage tanks in the wood, so we knew that we had to keep going on the water that was in that storage tank. So we decided 1 cup of tea and 1 cup of coffee a day, and it was a good job we did, because nobody came until March. Mind you, we had some homemade wine. That helped.
And how big a part of your life are your pets over here? Your pets, are they a big part of your life over
Oh
here?
yes, I couldn't have stayed for that year without my pets. No, they're a great help, aren't you, Nelson? He, in particular, is a very intelligent dog, and he jolly well knows what I'm saying to him.
Do you ever find that you regret having come out here?
Having to?
Do you ever regret having come out here?
Oh no, and that's why I was so astonished. It never crosses my mind at all. No, no regrets.
And could you pinpoint a most dramatic moment over all the years you've been here?
Well, I think really when we discovered that the cliff had fallen, we had no path, and we had to go up in the woods to get down to the beach, right round the back of the smuggler's cottage, and that went on for some time. I think that was the most dramatic one.
And finally, since Joseph of Arimathea allegedly passed by this way 2,000 years ago, the island kind of changed very much, really. How would you like to see the island evolve over the next 2,000 years?
I hope that it won't change at all. We can't say what nature's going to do about it, but as far as I'm concerned, I think the island should always be owned by people who want to keep it as it is. And that is why I'm so very anxious that it will not get into the hands of private people who want to exploit it in any way, and that it belongs to a trust who have the same ideas as Atty and I had when we started.
And before the island even came into your life easily warranted an autobiography. Have you got any plans to write one?
I don't think so, no. I might add a few more tales to the island tales, but I don't think that my life would be interesting to anybody before I came here.
Okay, so what's the earliest thing we know about the island?
Well, we think that the Celts were here. We have no proof of it at all. But there was a chapel on the top of the island, and we know that was there in 1200 because we have the list of the chaplains to the island from 1200 onwards, which is on the wall of the Talon Church, which is just along the coast from here. But there was also a monastery built on Hannibal, but research has shown that our chapel on the island predated that, because 2 monks coming over to the island to conduct a service were drowned, and it was under the Abbey of Glastonbury, so they set up a chapel on the mainland so that their visiting monks wouldn't have to face the bad seas, they would have somewhere to go. The legend of Joseph of Arimathea coming here with the child Christ, there's no authenticity about that, but strangely enough, the sign for West Looe is a boat with 2 figures in it, one large and one small, and whether that has any connection with the legend, we don't know. But there must have been a reason for a chapel to have been built on the island itself.
And what do we know about the chapel? Do we have any idea about it?
Well, the only thing we know about it is that there was a diagrammatic map of the island and the coastline between Foy and Looe, and according to this diagrammatic map, which was came out in Tudor times, was that the island seemed to be dominated by the chapel. The chapel looked as large as the island. They've got a copy of that in the British Museum.